Well, good, glorious greetings, everyone. It's been a few days, and I am going to keep this as short and sweet as I possibly can. Of course, you know me. I hope that all of you are doing well. I am coming to you today to address something that I committed. so, it wasn't a crime, but I have been requested to respond, okay, by a number of people who care about me, apparently. So, anyway, a few days ago, I reposted a post by, I think it was a short or TikTok or something like that, and I reposted it. Particularly, I think mostly on my private sector with friends and family, and so they have been responding. The post had to do with saying goodbye to your loved ones, okay? And the point that I gathered, the part that inspired me to repost the thing, was the fact that the lady was speaking about so many times we wait and then it becomes too late to make expressions to our loved ones. And so the part that inspired me was the fact that we all do that, and I have such a such a vivid memory of times and episodes when I have been in the presence of others who are in the process of losing their loved ones or have lost their loved ones. Or, say, for instance, at a funeral, and you notice a lot of emotions come through, and people are wailing and weeping and all these kinds of things, and especially for those of us who are in a culture where they expose the body of the deceased, okay, and that brings up a lot of emotions, and so lots of wailing, weeping, and when I worked at hospice, of course, and going into people's homes. And at the final moments of the demise of the loved ones, there's a lot of times, and a lot of times it depends on the culture. So I'll pick on my culture particularly. I'll say the majority of African Americans, or the majority of people based with certain denominational or indoctrinated or cultures that support strong displays of emotion at that time. So I'll tell a quick story. There was a young man personally involved, and he lost his father at the age of 10. He lost his grandfather at the age of 12, I think it was. And in the process between 10 and 12, he also moved from the comfort of his home. Okay, so there was lots of loss, and so I had the experience of observing this one. And so at some point or another, I noticed some things, and I commented and I said, well, I noticed that your brother expressed emotion and your mother expressed emotion, and you did not. And was there a particular reason, or are you, it's, what are you feeling? Do you want to discuss it? And so the young man said, well, the way I look at it, when somebody dies, and you do all this crying and all this kind of stuff, there's only two reasons to express things that way. And neither one of those reasons have anything to do with the deceased. And I asked him to expand on that. And he says, well, there's two reasons to cry. One is because you don't want to let go of that person. You would prefer if they could come back. And that's not about them, because you don't know what they were suffering from or if it was their time to go. You don't know exactly where they're going, but sometimes you do. And so once again, your crying is not about them. It's about what you think you want regarding them instead. And I said, okay, so the second reason? And he said, oh, that's not about them either. That's because you didn't say or do something that you thought you could have done, or knew you should have done, or wished you would have done before they died. But you didn't do it. And so you're crying. And that's not about them either. He said, so, that's the way I feel about that. That comment has stayed with me for a very long time because, like I say, that person was very close to me and quite young. And I felt like those were words of wisdom. And so I have always had a different course. Most of my friends and family will tell you that I've always been different. But I've tried not to be indifferent. I don't like looking on the bodies of my deceased loved ones, and I've never really partaken of that. I would generally walk out of the room if they're opening the casket, or I generally do not go around to view the body and things like that, because I prefer my last memories of that person to be when I last saw them smiling, or I last saw them breathing and alive, or I last prayed with them or for them, or I last shared some experience with them that was uplifting for either one of us. Okay? And so, yeah, I don't do the viewing of the body and this sort of a thing. If I'm there with a close loved one, generally I will get as close to that person as I can to be of a measure of comfort and support for that person. But I generally say my goodbyes a little bit ahead of what's going on. I tap into the spiritual realm of a person. For instance, I had a loved one that passed, and as this person was passing, I bent down and whispered into this person's ear, "It's okay to go home. You don't have to be afraid. The angels are waiting for you. Loved ones are waiting for you. Go. Go. And so when I came across this post where this person was talking about don't wait, because it may not unfold in a way that you could be there with them to say your last goodbyes. And this is true. So I put that out there because I was inspired. I reposted it because I was inspired to encourage us to be mindful of one another, be compassionate for one another, give each other their flowers or their accolades or their words of appreciation or words of inspiration or words of encouragement while they can hear you, while they can see you, while they can feel you. Well, I was going to make a statement, but I feel like it would only come out as judgment, and I don't want to do that. I only want to encourage all of us to lean into the compassion that is within us. Take a moment to make that phone call, send that text, repost that post that would inspire them or encourage them. Reach out and touch. Go visit. We don't do that anymore, ever. Go visit that person. Call them up and say, I'm off on Saturday and I have some time and I haven't seen you in a while. I'd really like to see you. Okay? Or, yeah, you get where I'm coming from. And this is not about judgment, and this is not about the fact that I'm suffering or something. Even if I were, or when I am, I don't whine about that. I don't rehearse. I don't say all the symptoms that I'm going through. And believe me, I go through challenges, okay? My children go through challenges. And as a mother, okay, when your children are going through challenges, you're going through challenges. So I would like this message to encourage each of us to just be a lot more mindful of one another. Because you don't know. You don't know when that person might take their last breath. Something that was not foreseen takes place. And you didn't get to say goodbye. Now, here's a little secret. And this is one of the things where I'm different. You can always say goodbye because your loved one just crossed over into the next room, into the next realm. The spirit never dies. And so, even if you whisper at that last moment when you get the information and you say, oh my, I'm so sorry, I missed you. I wish I could have said this or just did this. That person, that spirit of that person will know. Sometimes I've had them acknowledge that they know. Yeah, I'm not going to go too deep in that because you guys will start looking at me really, really, But yeah. And there are some times when you really pay attention, when you're really thinking about that person. They'll let you know that they're there. They're still there. And everything's okay. and that they love you too. Meanwhile, you don't have to wait. Make it a point not to wait. Find the time to call or text, to reach out, to say something that inspires and encourages that other person to have a glorious day. That's all.